Hello and welcome to our fantastic webinar today. We've got Nick Graveley and Ali Moosavi joining us today to talk about the world of VR modeling. Thank you very much for joining. I just want to welcome you guys. As you're all coming in, why don't you share where you're coming in from? Let's create a bit of community. Let's get chatting in this event. And we want to take as many questions as you guys have. We want to create a very discussive environment. So please keep the questions coming in, share where you're coming in from, share your what sort of experience level you've got of Gravity Sketch and the industry. Before we do anything else, let's introduce our fantastic guests today. So first off, I'll just bring on stage Ali and Nick. You might want to turn on your camera, guys.
Hey, everyone.
Okay. Hi.
How you doing, guys?
Good. Great to see you, Dan. Great to see you, Nick.
Yeah, great to see you guys too.
I'm looking forward to a fantastic session today. So we've got just under an hour to talk through your world. But why don't we start with yourself, Nick? If you want to introduce yourself, why you're here, what you're going to talk about today, and then Ali, I'd love to transition over to you as well.
Sure.
Okay. Hi. So, well, thank you very much, first of all, Dan and Ali, for inviting me to talk, and thank you everyone for actually attending. My name is Nick Graveley. I have been working. Well, I have 20 odd years working in clay modeling, which means I've had the most fantastic fun job working with designers to create some of the most iconic vehicles and motorcycles, and which is tremendous fun. And now I've kind of moved from clay modeling into virtual reality modeling, digital modeling, and so this is kind of what I'm here to talk to you about.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Nick. And thanks everyone for joining. My name is Ali Moosavi. I'm the lead automotive consultant at Gravity Sketch. I've had the privilege of working with the company for a year and a half now, focusing on US automotive companies. Prior to joining the team, I was an exterior designer at Stellantis, and since then have brought my experience of the automotive creative process to my role. I'm also an avid motorcycle enthusiast. I'm really excited to be able to collab with the talented Nick Graveley here today. And I hope you guys enjoy the session.
Fantastic. And guys, my name's Dan. I'm the community lead here at Gravity Sketch. And I'm here to be the voice of your questions. So please keep the questions coming in as we chat through. The guys are going to be in and out of headsets, but I'm here. And we'll see all the questions and get all the questions answered. But yeah, before why don't we dive straight into it? I mean, Nick, you've been through some exciting transitions over the last few months from Claymoto, and now you've started Sculpt 3D. And why don't you tell us all about that?
Okay, sure. I spent I think it was about 10 years working under the brand name Claymoto. But given what I've moved into, it seems a little bit too narrow, because whilst I still would love to work in clay, I still think clay's amazing. Whilst I still love motorcycles more than anything, it's just too narrow. And actually, what I've realised is that there's an opportunity to do something which is much, much greater than what I've been doing with Claymoto. And it's an opportunity to not just kind of change the way that people work, but it's an opportunity to lift up a demographic of people, my peers, my friends, other fellow clay modelers who have chosen the same path as I have in their lives. I've had a fantastic career doing clay, so the reason basically is just because the name doesn't really work, and so I had to kind of, at Christmas, I kind of put that name to bed and founded Sculpt 3D, and hopefully that is the brand which is going to change the way that we develop vehicles, and with a focus on doing that in real 3 dimensions.
That's amazing, Nick. I take it you're already teaching some of young designers and aspiring VR modelers as well, right?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, that's part of the, while I was doing Claymoto, I also had Grav training, which is kind of, I just wanted to bring everything under one roof. So that's Sculpt 3D. And this is really the focus now of what I'm doing, is just kind of sharing my knowledge. So whilst working with companies to actually, deliver projects with them, but actually to share my knowledge and to lift this entire industry, or to create this industry. In fact, it doesn't exist really. People are using VR headsets, but the whole category of VR modeling doesn't really exist, and it will exist. I strongly believe it. We as clay modelers have tremendous skills that we can now use in a digital environment, and so whilst the clay modeling has kind of gone down, this is now an opportunity for clay modelers to have an amazing future. So I'm trying to share that knowledge with as many people as I can, and so
nice. Yeah, another tool in their toolbox, which is really great. We actually witnessed at Graveley Sketch, companies are starting to create roles around VR modeling and VR type of roles. I think that's amazing. So you're right at the cusp of it, which is great.
Yeah.
And for me then, I'm not from the automotive space, I'm from the footwear space. Is this a pain point or is this an opportunity space? Like, can you just expand on that a little bit? Like, what is the opportunity or the pain that we're seeing, that we're tackling?
Yeah, this is a great question, because that is really the reason why any business exists, is to solve pain for somebody. And actually, I think probably it deserves to get a little bit of context in this. So I'll kind of rewind a little bit back, 100 years to when clay was first introduced by GM in the US in the 30s. And at that point in time, designers were kind of assigned to work with a modeler. So this created the profession of clay modeling, and so it became this designer, this ideas guy, and this craftsman, working together, like collaborating together to create the thing that they were making, much greater than the sum of their individual parts. And that went on for some, 70 years or something, until like the turn of the millennium, really. And it was this relationship that was fated by the automotive industry, celebrated. Everyone loved it. I don't know if you've ever caught Chris Bangle's TED talk, and he talks about these clay modelers and stuff. I mean, it was really a wonderful way that we worked together. And it's unfortunately, digital tools came along, around about the 90s, something like that, and there's been a gradual increase in clay and a corresponding decrease. An increase in digital, and a corresponding decrease in clay. And of course, what's happened is that this collaboration that we used to have has gone away. I'm not saying that digital didn't bring a lot of benefits with it. It certainly has. It's really brought clay modeling into line with all the other professions like engineering and such like within the process, and so that's tremendously positive. But just because of technical restrictions at the time, the only possibility was to work in a two-dimensional interface, i.e. a computer monitor, and that has been true for some 20-30 years. And now we're at the point where VR headsets are so affordable that we don't have to work in a digital environment only in 2D interface. We have a three-dimensional interface. And so all those problems that, so we got all the benefits by moving to digital, but what happens when we created all these problems? So suddenly the collaboration between these two guys was, disappeared. The output, so you're working between two-dimensional and three-dimensional when you're milling, and two-dimensional, 3D, going back and forth. The designer and the modeler are trying to, the designer's trying to convey to the modeler what he wants, and they're only able to understand what's going on the monitor from a single perspective, and they can't really understand this. So how can you possibly make good decisions about what are the next steps if the information you're receiving is so poor? And so now, and I've got a list of pain points here. But But also, yeah, sorry, you're not leveraging the skills of those clay modelers who, spent their tens of thousands of hours learning how to build real things in the real world and what things what volumes, how they work, and so that's fallen by the wayside. And now there's a whole load of guys, clay modelers, my peers, my friends, who are out of work, and so some of them have gone over to digital, but for me personally, going to digital was never an option because it's like losing an arm, or it's almost literally like losing an eye because you no longer have the same perception. And so now so to bring it back to the present, like in 2020, and of course the pandemic, and I was lucky enough to still be doing clay during the pandemic, but I was able to experiment with this because I could get a headset for a Quest 2 was only a couple of €100, and so then I was able to experiment, and I could see immediately that this was a viable alternative to be able to work digitally in 3D. And so yeah, I have, and that's basically what I've been doing for the last 3 years is learning that and getting better and better at that and sharing that knowledge. And now I think at a point where we've got a real product offering that we can go into studios and just solve so many pain points. We can get the benefits of that we experienced with physical modeling and all the benefits of digital modeling, and we just put them all into one, and we negate all the negatives. We get rid of all the clay that's all over the floor, all the smells, or it's like a win-win-win-win-win. It's just so many ways. So yeah, I very, very strongly believe in it, as you may be able to tell, and yeah, it just needs this awareness, I think, of the power of it, and so that's the raison d'etre for Sculpt 3D, really.
Yeah. So in short, clay modelers are moving from more of a corrective type of workflow where they're receiving a milled model and they're correcting things that may have not been present or in front of the mind of the designers as they're spinning around that 2D model. And now you're putting creation back into the hands of clay modelers. In short.
Yeah. No, absolutely right. I mean, yeah, because like I could imagine this has not been my experience, but I know it is the experience of so many people, of clay modelers. Now they're just slicking up milling marks and die knocking. That thing that was the core of our, the core enjoyment of our job, that creativity with a designer. I mean, just the very. This always happens to me. I must have some sort of hair trigger. But when I think about like just that collaboration and how just creates this oxytocin, which this positive collaboration at the end of the project. You just feel so good about it. It's not been a fight. You've worked together. You bounced ideas off each other, and yeah, I mean that's how it is in 3D. That's why it was always so celebrated.
I would love to understand that a little bit more. So we've got Ali coming from a design perspective. Nick, you're coming from a clay modeling perspective, or the modern modeler, however you frame it. But tell me about what that process looks like to go from design to modeling. What's that intersection? And then what does the collaboration piece look like? Because you got really excited when you talked about that moment where designer and modeler were coming together and just putting hair standing up on your arm, and tell me like what those roles are, who's responsible for what, and then at what point does it intersect? And Ali, please jump in from a designer perspective too.
Absolutely. Maybe we could start with the design and then move on to the clay portion. So let's say that there's a project that's happening in that particular studio. Designers would generate themes, develop their ideas, develop their vision for that specific project. And once they come to a conclusion and they have like kind of a set theme, traditionally they would pin those sketches up on a board and work with a clay modeler to try to execute that vision. And that's where the exciting part begins, because yes, you have a vision that's in 2D format, but it doesn't feel real until it's in a 3D property, right? So transitioning from those 2D sketches into clay, that's where that collaboration really begins. And as Nick knows, sometimes designers draw things that aren't possible. They draw things that surfaces that might not exist in any reality. And it's the job of the clay model and designer to come together to kind of figure out what that vision is and how to execute and how to solve the problems to get that cohesive vision together.
Yeah, no, exactly right. And it's, and to go from a two-dimensional sketch to a three-dimensional model, as you say, so many things that are sketched aren't really possible in 3D, or they're a starting point. There's a nugget of an idea in there that you kind of have to refine, and so it requires a medium which is sufficiently malleable that allows for that kind of experimentation. We know it's not going to be right. We can see it on the sketch, it's not going to be right, but we can work on the stuff that we like, and we go, okay, well, that's as good, and then we figure out, okay, what's going to work with that thing here to really, and so it's a beautiful journey, actually, is what it is, between a designer and a modeler, going on this journey together, trusting each other, collaborating with one another, bouncing their ideas off one another, talking to each other. Hey, is this going to work? And the more trust that is generated in that kind of environment, it's just a virtuous cycle. And of course, we argue, oh, that's not going to work, whatever. But the thing is, it's so quick certainly in VR, just to try it, that it's like there's no reason not to. So it's like, okay, well, let's just try your idea, let's try this idea, let's try these three ideas, and then we just whack them next to each other and have a look. And you couldn't do that in clay. You had to have a really clear idea, but at least the medium was sufficiently malleable that you could try it out and stuff. And
absolutely. Absolutely. And the majority of the knowledge of 3D that I've gained over the years has come from working with clay modelers, right? Because once you get that sketch, even though, designers typically make their wheels big, they smash the cabin, they stance it out, it's more of an expression and a feeling of a vehicle. And then once you get to the actual package in a clay model, if it's a scale, that's when you're like, oh, snap, I have to make this thing look real now. How do I translate all these ideas? And the clay modeler essentially helps the designer on that journey of making it feel the same way, but over a realistic package. So I've spent countless hours sketching little thumbnail doodles right next to a clay modeler, planning out like how we can execute a surface, and having that kind of collaboration where, they're scratching up the clay, packing new clay, trying to solve it out a body side and trying to make it work. And it's a beautiful collaboration, as Nick stated.
Yeah, it's super fun.
And then it sounds like, you're getting very excited about it. It sounds like it's getting compounded by the opportunity in the VR space, right? Just to pick up on a couple of comments in the chat there, I think Arturo and Jamie, I think, from the chat were talking about, they had the Quest 2 and they kind of saw some of the benefits, but now they've got the Quest 3 with AI pass-through, and that's like the game-changing experience. What was that transition like for you then, Nick, from your perspective?
Yeah, I think it took a while for me to realize the value in the AR pass-through, because I had the Quest 2 and it was this kind of black and white, slightly fuzzy thing. And then, so I was just working on models and stuff, but actually then I realized that the value of actually being able to see it and put it in the context of the room that I'm in, that I understand the dimensions of the room, I can see through, that actually gives you so much, certainly with something that's the scale of a motorcycle, you can see it and understand it very, very well, much, much better. I would say there is actually, so I now have a Quest 3, a Quest Pro as well, and so I had this color pass through, but I did actually, at Christmas, I had to put on the Quest 2 with the black and white. And actually, it was quite an interesting experience to see the fully colored model in front of me on a fuzzy black and white background, because it really made the model pop. So you were aware of its context, but it kind of jumped out. And so it'd almost be an interesting experience to be able to turn off the color on the Quest 3, just to see what that's like. Yeah, it's a powerful technology, and of course, how many years into this are we? Nothing. We're absolutely at the start of the journey, and so it makes sense to be doing this right now, because this is the trajectory.
Yeah, I think it's particularly amazing if you are working with a physical property, for instance, like an interior book or a motorcycle chassis, and then you're able to go into that AR pass-through mode, design in full size, and be able to sit on or in your creation and tweak things live. I think that's super powerful. I noticed that our customers of Gravity Sketch also think the same, but it's incredibly powerful to be able to augment your the property that you're working with.
Well, you completely believe it's there. I mean, after a couple of seconds, the thing I noticed the most is when I put people into the headset, and then they take the headset off and then they're shocked. Well, where's the bike gone? Because they felt it there. They understood it was there. There was just literally no question about it being there. And I don't think anybody has ever felt that way looking at a 2D monitor at a model. And that's it. That's the reason why we do working in a three-dimensional space, because we want to understand how that object relates to us. We anthropomorphize stuff. We look at stuff and try to see it, how we relate to it in scale, in its attitude and its surfacing. It speaks to us. It's just so much more communicative.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like a tagline. It speaks volumes, right? If you work in Gravity Sketch, it speaks volumes. It genuinely does, because you can understand it in a way I have never been able to understand through a two-dimensional monitor interface.
Yeah, I mean, I've had that moment where you put on the Quest 3 and you're talking about something in the room, and you're almost kind of getting almost frustrated that the person that doesn't have the headset on is not getting what you're talking about, right? And it is. But what's beautiful about that is it's like that's the very essence of the creative process. When you create something, you want to share it, and it's a sign of something great when you really want to share it, and that energy is so much part of the creative process, which is nice, alluding to your earlier point of going from the days where we were very physical, very hands-on, very 3D, and then we ended up a little bit more 2D on a computer screen, and now we're kind of reclaiming a little bit of that, and that's really exciting because it adds to the collaborative journey of creativity, which is cool. I want to maybe take the moment to jump into VR, if that's all right, guys.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of conversation around collaboration, how things are changing, how the experience of collaboration is changing, and we could perhaps simulate some of that, if that's okay with you guys.
Yeah,
no, let's do it. Just give me a little second to jump into the room here.
A lot of chat in the conversation. Pun intended ? I'm not sure. I must have said something that was a non-deliberate pun.
Bear with me a second. I just have to restart Gravity Sketch. Okay.
Possibility of 3D scanning objects and importing them into GS work to continue work on the designs. That's a question coming through from the chat. And actually, as community lead, you get the privilege of just seeing a lot of great work within the community. And I need to share it, but it was a backpack designer who had scanned a mannequin effectively, and then they were designing the backpack over the top of that mannequin. So yes, people are absolutely doing it, and AR pass-through is just enhancing that experience. I would love to see more of it, actually, because I think it's something that's really, really cool. Just remember mics, guys, on the headsets.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that was me. No, but it's a great question about the scan data. I think that's actually the perfect question, because in the room here, Nick has scanned a BMW chassis. I hope I'm correct. I think that is a BMW.
Yeah, you need to share your screen there, Nick.
Just bear with me half a moment. The casting stopped, and I just have to. I'm just trying to sort that out just now.
Don't worry. I can check out another few questions. So
go with some questions. Do you want to take a question or two?
Yeah, just reading through them.
Okay.
If you can concentrate whilst doing this one, Nick, I think it is for you. I see you all use, and Ali as well, you have a lot of experience working with OEMs. So I see you all use GS professionally. I was wondering, how is your workflow in a one-to-one meeting with a client?
My workflow with a one-to-one meeting, yeah, I mean, it would be somewhat similar to this, other than us being on maybe a Zoom call or a WebEx call. We would jump straight into the headset. We would look at the asset and we'd just start working. And I'd do my best to answer questions and help along the way and finesse surface along the way. But yeah, it would look very similar to this, where Nick's in Nick, I'm in Detroit, and we're able to jump into the same room and touch the same object.
And Ali, what's your experience of clients actually onboarding this tool? How are they doing with it? What's the adoption like?
Adoption's actually really great. It does take a few sessions to get used to the idea, especially if you've never been in VR before. But once you get acclimated to the hardware and you get acclimated to just the tool set, it's just a matter of practice. For me, in my personal journey, I was introduced to Gravity Sketch when I was at Stellantis, and I dove right in. I was really enthusiastic about the tool. I saw the value immediately. And it took about 8 hours or so to get really comfortable with the interface and get really comfortable with spatial sketching. But once I understood that, getting into the topology aspect of it, sub-desurfacing and really being able to control surface in a way where it's acceptable at a professional level, it takes time, just time and practice. But the thing is, with the learning curve, it's not steep at all if you compare it to some of the other tools that are available to you in the automotive industry, such as like Alias or Blender for that matter. Those learning curves are super steep, and you're able to get up and running within a month if you really put your mind to it.
So Nick, I have a feeling that perhaps we can. I have a feeling that perhaps your headset is picking up the volume from your computer, perhaps. So maybe mute the volume from your computer and then speak and hear through the headset.
Okay, I won't be able to hear through the headset, but I shall move away from it just in a moment.
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I just wanted to. I thought this might make an interesting demo. Dan, if you could just mute your.
Are you hearing him?
Yeah, we can hear you fine. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I thought Ali said something. So contractors or freelance clay modelers who
guys,
who I've been teaching.
Nick, I'm not sure why, but it seems like the audience are not actually hearing the audio come through. Are you? So, guys in the chat, are you hearing Nick speak? Okay. Yeah, it seems to be back. Yeah, it's back.
It was okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So what was I talking about? So I've got these clay modelers who so I've been teaching because like I said, I feel it's incumbent upon me.
Sorry, Nick. Can you unmute your computer and speak through the computer? It seems like the audience is not picking up from some reason.
Okay, I'll sit in this. I'll sit in this chair over here.
It still works, yeah.
This is working. Okay, fine. So I was just saying that I'm not sure how much.
Nothing. Go again, Nick.
Absolutely nothing. Okay, brilliant. What was I saying? So I was saying, so Gravity Sketch is an incredibly powerful tool, but what it requires, in my opinion, is it requires a modeler to work alongside the designer. So whilst a designer is capable of creating something within Gravity Sketch, very much like clay, it requires a craftsman, someone who actually really, really understands how to use it, and that is their profession, is to create and craft beautiful surfaces. And so that's essentially in a nutshell what I'm trying to do. My LinkedIn post today to get some transportation designers. That the motivation there is because I've got these clay modeling freelancers who I've been training up, and actually I want them to have some real world experience of what it's like to actually to work with a designer and get that collaboration going. And at the same time, I want those designers to have that experience of working with a modeler and kind of understanding that, oh, okay, yeah, there is this kind of extra level that we can take this to, that maybe they can't do it single-handedly. I mean, I know there are some very, very talented guys out there who can do everything themselves, but that's certainly not the majority, I would say. So as I said before, the collaboration of two creative humans, creating something that is much greater than the kind of sum of their individual contributions. So Ali's just been doing some lines over here. He thinks that this BMW needs some extra bodywork on it, I think. So I'm just going to try and figure out what he's drawing here. This is not rehearsed or anything, so we just this is going to be totally on the fly. Ali, do you want to say something while I'm just trying to figure this out? This is going to be.
Ali, unmute yourself on the computer
and
then talk to your design.
Yeah, I just did it. So yeah, I'm just designing a fairing here to kind of cover up some of the componentry of the engine and some of the chassis here. I think it would complement the surface that he has already, and maybe give it a little bit more of a modernization to it. So yeah, I just sketched some lines using the ink stroke and then just organizing them to have a little bit of speed. And what I'm gonna do now is I'm actually gonna describe some of the sections.
I'm gonna have to go. Do you want to take this outside of the exhaust here, or do you want to maybe make a feature cut out for the exhaust pipe, because we're gonna need.
Yeah, that would be cool if there was a feature cut actually, because we can have like a feature cut like this here, and then maybe that could maybe we can come up with a little bit of a light catcher here for that. Here, I'm gonna assume that's on the other side as well, correct?
I mean, it is asymmetric, but.
Oh, okay. Let me turn the mirror off on that, and then.
Just one for you, Nick, as Ali's talking through that. Move your head nice and slow so that it's not so jaggy for everybody.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry about that. Let's see. So I'm not quite sure what's happening up at the back here. Ali, is that going?
Figuring out a way to maybe bring this surface up here. I mean, it's a rough idea, but let's figure it out together.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell me about how similar this is to your physical clay modeling process.
It's completely different, I would say. Like in terms of like looking at a sketch and trying to understand, okay, what are the surfaces that are going to be required to make that form? That is the same. And actually, that is, I would say, key to our advantage in here is that we have some kind of understanding of what it means. So what's important, like if I just look up here on the gas tank, for example, like it's quite sparse topology, but there is kind of a flow of the surfaces, and each of these faces kind of flows the way that the surfaces naturally do, and that's important in laying out your topology. Is to lay out your topology in a way that complements the design. And so if Ali came and said, okay, no, I actually want to do something different, like it might require that we might not be able to pull actually this topology around. We might actually have to change the topology somewhat to actually be the right topology for his design thinking. So and that's kind of I think that's one of our keys, is that we have that key understanding. But we have a massive advantage because we can grab it and move around in 3D so easily.
Yeah, I see that you don't use vertical lock, huh? I don't have the stomach for it, but I use vertical lock the majority of the time. Yeah, because I could put this, like I'm sitting at my desk right now and I'm watching you model this thing at 50% scale right now. But so far the surfaces that you kind of laid out look pretty spot on to the sketches.
I need a bit more information from you. Actually, I was just gonna ask you, what's the blue thing? Is the blue thing something?
The blue thing is that cutout for the blue thing right here is for the cutout on the asymmetrical aspect of for the exhaust pipe.
Yeah, and then
we'll have to add that after once we get the main surfaces in there, I think.
Hey, what's that line then? Is that just a break in?
Oh yeah, that's just a section line. Yeah, I just wanted to showcase that body line, and I wanted to crack in.
Yeah. So yeah, well, I mean, we're smashing through the here, but so yeah, I mean, actually, you say about the vertical lock. The vertical lock is really useful for looking at the model in the context. But I mean, like if I get back up here onto, let's say, let's look at the fuel tank, because I know the fuel tank's not quite perfect. But I'm in this room here with these highlights. Let me just get to a place where they are, and being able to grab the model and look at it like from any angle and rotate it and figure out the highlights and see how they cross the surface. Hang on, I'm just going to see where the highlights are. Okay, they're over here. Okay. There's actually a weird bug that when you have to move the torch in order to get the HDRI to be reflected. I've been meaning to tell you guys about that.
Really noted.
Like if you look at you see the highlights kind of dropping at the back here because that surface was flicking out very slightly.
You're talking about these ones here.
So, but I mean, this is it. Like, just to be able to grab the model and hold it in your hand and rotate it and look at it from any angle. I mean, that is just such a game changer for a clay modeler, because as a clay modeler, you're always trying to look at the surface from different angles. You're moving your head around, you're moving your body around, and now you don't. You can just sit in your nice lazy boy armchair and actually move the model around. And so actually, we can actually get to some reasonable surface fidelity. I know those are not perfect, but we can always.
Yeah, I was going to say, show off your topology a little bit, because you executed some really beautiful surfacing on this gas tank with a very minimal amount of edge loops. And that's something that I see a lot when I train new users, is they want to put as many edge loops as they can to kind of define their surface, but you could do a lot with a little. And I think this is a really good example of doing a lot with a little. So yeah, if you can kind of like zoom into your topology and kind of speak about how you organize things, I think that would be great for the audience.
Okay. Well,
Nick, Jamie is feeling you when he says no more laying on the floor checking lines.
Yeah.
I thought I could feel something. So
tell me, how long would this take if it was a clay model?
Just the build-up of the buck. Yeah, I mean, you're talking. I mean, I've done models quickly in a week or 2 weeks. I think actually, if you look at the timeline, there's the video I put on LinkedIn and that of this model. I think if you look at the number of times I scrape the floor, or the number of times the floor gets clean, it's probably a week or something to do the whole top here. But I'll show you. Why don't I show you actually? I've got the alias data. So I can't turn on the clay scan because it's actually too heavy to deal with untethered. So we can only do the pass through when I'm untethered. But I thought it was definitely worth showing you untethered. And so I've got the alias data here. So this is the alias data that my buddy did from the clay data. And where are we? The subd tank. So I'll turn off. In fact, let me just lock the subd tank. I'll just lift this guy up here. I realized that actually, there's some weird old highlights going on here on this tank. And this is a friend doing it for me quickly, so I'm not going to criticize too much. But I could recognize some problems in that tank now that I get to see the alias data in here, and I can actually kind of rectify them in this model a little bit. I just did this last night because actually I wasn't sure I was going to show the alias tank or not. But that probably took me about 45 minutes, I suppose, to lay out all the topology where I wanted it, and then just a little bit of tweaking. Well, actually, quite a lot of tweaking. Actually, I suppose I spent at least another 45 minutes again, like tickling it and moving it around and stuff. And it's close to that alias. It's close to the clay. But the point is that this is the tool that you can get to very good results with. You're not going to get to mathematically perfect A-class surfaces, but you use the right tool for the right stage of the project. And if you're going from a sketch to a design model, you don't need it to be perfect. Alias is beautiful for that. That is exactly what those guys were trained to do when we were doing clay and they were doing the alias cleanup. They would make jabs fixed to your surfaces. Brilliant, that's your job. We couldn't get it perfect in clay. We didn't expect to. And so that was it's a collaboration. It takes a lot of people to make a vehicle, and each one of us is taking it to the next level of refinement as we go through the process. And so basically, I think we can get this to a very, very acceptable level. And more than that, when we ultimately go to mill out a clay model from this, if we do, or a hard model, the perception that we have in here is so identical to the perception you have when you see it as a fully modeled clay model. It's just exactly the same. In fact, because you've no longer got reflections and color breakup, it actually feels a little bit like a backward step for me. But you feel the presence of it as a clay model, and you can sit on it and you can check your knee clearances and all those things. But sorry, Ali, I'm rather neglecting your design inputs here.
No worries.
So just as you're going through that, so I mean, we've seen then how a designer might get involved in that process, showing design intent. we've seen how Nick is basically taking that design intent and making something real and physical out of it on the bike. What happens then, guys, as we kind of close up in VR in the next 2-3 minutes?
Okay.
What happens when you're happy with your model? And this is a question from Jason. When you're happy with your model and services in GS, and you now want to DFM.
What's the DFM?
I assume is it for manufacturing, Jason?
Oh, okay.
You ready for manufacturing? What's your next stage, in short? Yeah.
So sorry. After Gravity Sketch.
Yeah.
To
You're
get
happy
the
with your model. Talk through those next steps.
I'm not sure. I think I've got 2 copies of this here. This is what I'm. Yeah. That's what I'm.
Well, I could tell you from a designer perspective what a designer would do once they're happy with the surface. They would take it into a visualization program and try to create some more imagery, maybe an animation around it. But ultimately, I think what would come next for the productionizing of this is hand it off to a digital sculptor to then retopologize for A class. But Nick, if you want to shed a little bit more color on that, I think that's how we can close out.
Yeah, I mean, that's been my experience. Actually, has been that I'll hand this off to an alias modeler. Either that, or it might be the final scan that we've done. If we've done a clay modeler, we've done some final tickling in clay, then that will be kind of in conjunction with this. But I'll typically export the IGES from here, and then the alias guy actually using that IGES can actually understand a lot better my surface. He can see my patch layout, so he can understand actually what was my intention when I was building those surfaces, and he can use that to inform his A-class surfacing layout. And so that's and then it's I would say a fairly typical process, because then it's in the A-class and it's in that refinement zone. But I often bring stuff back into Gravity Sketch, alias stuff, in order to check it and see how it matches, check out the highlights in here, rather than spinning it on alias. I don't have an alias license as part of that, because it's mortally expensive. I don't know if you want to expand on that, Ali, but that's about it.
No, I think you explained it nicely. Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
There's a few questions in the chat, so I do wonder if it's perhaps best we come out of VR in the next.
Yeah. So
how are we getting on, guys?
I think we're not quite ready for production yet.
No.
More journey, design development journey required.
But it was fantastic to see, certainly in the early phases, you had Ali coming in and saying, hey, look, this is what I'm trying to achieve. And you're saying, hey, look, what's going on there, Ali? And you could really explain at a very detailed level of depth, like what you're trying to achieve. And also, you got it straight away, right? There wasn't much back and forth. Oh, I don't quite understand. Like, you got it almost straight away, and we're able to start implementing that. Which is fantastic to see. So, right. So I'll just stop the presenting of this screen, Nick. Hope that's okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. And so just to come to a couple of the questions as well, on a real practical point, and then would love to understand more about what you're doing, Nick, is one of the questions that came in there from Daniel was, how do you manage to work with those big assemblies, and how do you export them?
Okay, so typically, I presume he's referring to, like, if the engineers give him a complex engine frame, all that stuff. The way I do it is I'll get step data from the engineers. I'll import that into Blender using the Stepper plugin, which is like $10 or something, but is amazing. And then that automatically turns that step data into a mesh, which you can change the fidelity of it on the import, and then you can also change the fidelity of it, in Blender itself. And then I'll export all those as a single OBJ mesh into Gravity Sketch. And when you do that, then it comes in all as one thing, but you can actually grab it and then ungroup it. And then each one of those meshes is its own object. So you can color it individually and whatever. And so, and then sometimes I might have a couple of different fidelities available to me because, like I say, it's so powerful to be able to work in AR, but you need quite a low fidelity mesh. I mean, actually, we saw that was actually working quite well, and there was quite a heavy scan of the BMW that was underneath that. So it's not completely incompetent, but if you've got a lot of components and such like, and you'll have steering lock as well. So you have a lot of stuff on different layers that you're using as reference data, and and that's basically it. Is then you're working on it, and then often they'll say, oh, the engineers have changed this, and so then you just go, okay, no problem. And they send you the latest thing, and you get rid of that, and you bring in the new one, and you just keep on working, and it's
the reaction time is a lot quicker too when the package does change, right? So if there is a update to that, frame or engine data that you're able to just manipulate very easily, like you saw Nick manipulate the surface around it to kind of massage the surface around that package.
Yeah. I mean, the future that I foresee happening is having this kind of central model that is almost the latest data and such like, and we'll be able to get together with designers, modelers, designers, engineers. We'll all get together around the same model, and in the same way that as we communicate and we collaborate, we'll be able to speak the same language with engineers. Currently everyone's quite siloed, and so there's people are solving problems, and then it creates another problem for this guy. But if you can get together, climb inside the model, and the engineer goes, what, my problem is this, I need to make this thicker, I need to whatever, then the designer can go, well, I tell you what, can we not just do it this way? Because if you need to add thickness, can you not add a buttress here or something? Because that's really going to mess with my surface, and this is really important to me. And so then it just totally enhances this collaboration, and everyone's swimming in the same direction. Because you hear people conversing and saying, oh, fighting the engineers, fighting this guy, fighting for my design. It shouldn't be that. It should be, we are all swimming in the same direction. Of course, people want to make their thing the priority over maybe someone else's, but ultimately we're all being paid to do something fun by a company that we need to succeed in order to keep paying us. And so, and then we feel better about it when we have that collaboration as well.
Well said, Nick. Bringing everybody into the ecosystem and having fluid communication and collaboration is the selling point of Gravity Sketch. So you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you feel like these workflows change the definitions of roles and what different people are doing at different parts of the process? Do you feel like it exaggerates the role of a designer and a modeler, or do you feel it brings them closer together? Is it more blurred lines, or how do you feel like the roles evolve?
I think it puts the roles much more closely back to the way they were, when we were doing clay and designer. So, our jobs as modelers is to empower the designer. That's it. We should be an extension of the designer's thoughts, their actions. That's what we're there for. We're not there to throw up roadblocks and go, no, it's not possible, go away and sketch it again. It's our job to go, yeah, come on, let's try it. And so being able to have the designer along there with you for the ride, while you're doing stuff together, it extends the influence that the designer can have, into more modeling, because they start to pull stuff in themselves. They start to, they're going to grow with confidence in how to use these tools. And, also as a modeler, we get to say, because we can say, well, what about this? And we can model it without actually, on a clay model, it might be like, oh, I've got this wacky idea, why don't I just knock it in? And the designer will be like, how about you don't? Because I quite like that. You can just do it here. The stakes are low. You can just show them, and they go, oh yeah, cool. And so, we're creatives. We like to share our ideas, and once there's that trust between you, everyone's ideas are valid and stuff. But yeah, so I suppose does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think you did.
What do you think, Ali?
Well, yeah, from my perspective, or at least from a designer's perspective, this tool really allows the blurring of lines a bit. The tool set of automotive designers are rapidly changing. You did have designers in the past, roughing in aliens models and then passing that off to be, retopologized and then milled out. It's kind of been the traditional process, but tools such as Graveley Sketch, Blender, Unreal, you have this completely new tool set which allows designers to not only sketch in 2D, but they also are able to rough in some of that early stage, those early stage models. They may not be, accurate in terms of topology, but it gives the modeler or the clay modeler or digital modeler a really great jumping off point that's accompanied by their sketches so that they're able to get a much clearer vision of their intent. So there's not a lot of misinterpretation of that initial 2D sketch. And then designers are also now VFX artists, right? We're seeing a lot of designers in the very early stages creating full-blown animations and renderings that you would typically see down the line being executed by another department completely. So this tool has allowed a mixture and also an awareness of how your workflow can change or adjust based on the tools that you bring into your personal ecosystem.
Yeah.
So a question that, because I want to get to, Nick, some of what you're doing in the kind of education teaching space. And one of the questions that popped up there relating to that is, how have you taught GS Best to others? And, what projects did you start with? So first off, I think it makes sense. You're also teaching, right?
All for teaching, did you say?
You're also teaching and kind of coaching in this space. Why don't you talk a little bit about that? Understand a little bit more about that.
I mean, I guess I need to share my knowledge with people because I need more people to want this to happen. It's all fine. It's all very fine that I've kind of had these revelations. I can use it kind of in my small corner of the world, in the motorcycle world and such like. But I really want to share this with people. I really want people to adopt it, and I want to drive that change. And I have to say, I've had a lot of pushback, I would say, from the two-dimensional. I apologize, 2.5D modeling community. Who work on a flat monitor. I don't. This is actually. Let's just talk about that quickly. For me, there is a distinct difference between a monitor and working in a space like this. So is the right word spatial 3D modeling? I don't know. I feel like we need to differentiate between the two because they are distinctly different experiences. I know we're all creating 3D things, but anyway, I digress. So what I would really like to happen would be to see more clay modelers like pushing for this from their side, because this is this is your best opportunity, I would say, for a career in the future. Like, I know that there will be people are always going to need clay models. They always say it. And okay, brilliant. If you're one of the people that is still doing clay models when the clay modeling is still done, perfect. But there are so many people that are not that person. And so being able to operate digitally, work digitally, I mean, honestly, you'll just love it anyway. It's amazing. I don't know how many times I've heard people say, "Oh my God, this is amazing." I just had a text message from one of my, one of the guys I'm just about to start teaching next week, saying he's, found how super addictive he finds it. And so, yeah, it's that it needs to come from inside the design departments, the will to have this. There's only so much that I can do from the outside. And so having designers and modelers who work together in this space, and so designers need to understand the value that will bring them. It is going to give them much more control. It's going to be able to, I'm sorry, I don't know if you can hear my dog, but it's just going ape shit. But also, designers need to kind of push for this, and also clay modelers should be pushing for this, and I'm totally there to support you in that push. But whenever I'm talking to companies, it seems to be referred over to the people that are doing the 2D cast, 2.5D cast, sorry. And it's not in their interests. I'm sorry, and I genuinely feel bad for the guys who love working at Blender, doing the creative work, and I hope that we take that away. I don't want to take it away from you, but I want to take it back to the clay modelers, and so yeah, so that's essentially it. And so this is why I'm starting to just train up a bunch of clay modeling or freelance clay modelers, because I've been there. I've had the experience of being away from home, with the empty months in the calendar because things didn't happen or whatever. There's not an abundant amount of work. But at the moment it seems like there's a lot of clay work again. But once it's slicking up and die knocking for the most part, which is work, but it's not the thing that we fell in love with when we made this our careers. And so that's essentially it. I'm training people up to make people's lives better. Basically, I've gotten a bit older, I think, and had kids, and I feel like my priorities have changed, and things that I find rewarding have changed. And so so anybody who wants to reach out to me, and we'll figure out a way. It's becoming quite an expensive hobby, to be honest, but as long as I can actually do enough paid training for companies and stuff alongside my consulting work, then I'm totally happy.
So what would be your advice? And I think Ali, you'd be great to answer this too, to those people just starting out learning modeling or designing in VR. Do you start with a bike or a car, or do you start with something else, or where do you start?
Well, when I'm doing the training, we start with basics. What I say to most people is, hey, do the tutorials that are baked into Gravity Sketch. They're great. All the videos are from your perspective, so you're not looking at me with my hands on the other way, trying to tell you how to do something. You can stop, you can pause it, you can rewind it, whatever. And so that's a great starting point, is to just do the tutorials. And then once we get in there, we can start I'll start teaching people about how I lay stuff out. Well, actually, it kind of comes a little bit later, but we start talking about sub D, because people are confused about, why when I turn on the sub D does all the corners disappear, and so then you have to understand a little bit about the sub D algorithm and why it works, and then once you kind of get it, you get it. But yeah, of course it's build up slowly, build up from surfaces. I mean, for me, the way I look at any object really is it's a set of volumes that are intersecting, or it's a set of surfaces, but really it's a set of volumes. And this is actually key to what I look at the automotive landscape today. And it's just lines and unnecessary stuff. I don't even know where it came from. I mean, I've got some images I could show. I was going to show you, but then I felt like I don't want to, because I don't want to shame someone. Some people put their heart and soul into developing these things. But classic design, real designs that have longevity, are volumes. It's an assembly of volumes. It's proportions, and it's the kind of understanding of those things. And those volumes have intersections, and where they meet each other, and they have breaks where they change direction. And so that's kind of what I teach people is lay out the line work, and then we start to put in a sub D ribbon along that line work, and then we put in the surfaces. And so because when we look at a three-dimensional object, what we see is first because of the way our human brain works, we pick out the hard edges first. And then, we pick out the softer edges, and then we pick out the kind of the shading on the surfaces. And so that's kind of the hierarchy of the way I teach people to build stuff. And so, but if you want to know more, I mean, go to my website. It's kind of, there's a load of stuff on there.
The advice I would give to someone starting out in this space is, Dive right in. Dive right in. Follow your passion, and do not be afraid of being bad at first. Like, I think that stops a lot of people from going on the journey, is being bad at it. Like, don't be afraid of that. Just trust the process. Put the time in. Practice. Like Nick said, there's tutorials that are in the headset in Gravity Sketch that go over every individualized tool. There's the first sketch, which also is a motorcycle, which is awesome. But as well as, there's so many YouTube videos out there of different things being created from various different industries. So whatever your passion is, follow it. And like I said, dive in and put your heart into it.
I absolutely agree with what you just said. That is true.
Amazing, guys. I mean, we'll need to round off. You need to take the dog out for a walk, I think, Nick. But yeah, I mean, I would love to, just before we close, is it all right I put some of your contact details in the chat for people to?
Yeah, please do. Send it to everyone in a personalized email. I just want to, honestly, connect with me on LinkedIn. I think it's probably the best place, or LinkedIn or Instagram. I just want to hear. I want to connect with people that are interested in doing this. Really.
And then, so just those contacts in there. What does it look like for you then, moving forward? What's the future of Sculpt 3D?
Just try and raise awareness. Try and get more clay modelers into studios talking about this. More designers with those clay modelers understanding that this is a tool plus modeler. It's that triad. It's the designer plus Clarity Sketch plus modeler that is this is the key ingredient, which is the thing that really lifts it up into being a professional tool. And there's a group of people that will be delighted to fill that void and provide that service. And so, yeah, I don't exactly know. Quite honestly, there's many things, but for sure, it's going this way. And being able to work from home, see my family, kids every day. I want that for more people. Distributed work. I don't exactly know what it's going to look like. I'm kind of just seeing what happens in the market, and we'll go from there. But yeah.
Yeah, and I can attest to Nick's post on LinkedIn, their quality, and he brings up some really great talking points. And Nick, I have to say, after this session, I would love to collab with you on a regular basis, maybe even get some motorcycle designs out there. I think that'd be super cool.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, people keep asking me to collab. I'm like, absolutely, but that's it. The people, people who do this, they're just like, oh yeah, definitely, because it's such a euphoric experience, actually. Yeah,
it's infectious for sure.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Well, I mean, we will need to round off, but I do want to say thank you so much, both of you. But Nick, sharing about your plans for Sculpt 3D, it truly is amazing. It's very inspiring for me, coming from outside the industry and looking inwards and seeing how things can be done. It's a very exciting time for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Nick. Thanks, Dan.
All right. And then just before we close up, I just did want to call out to the guys in the chat, because we actually didn't get through every question because there was so many questions. So I do apologize if we never got to your question. The other thing I wanted to say, there's lots of feature related comments. I don't want to say, we didn't want to draw attention to them and discuss them too much because it takes away from all the great work that Nick's doing. But I do want to encourage you guys to get on the Discord, because once a quarter, we're going to do a quarterly Ask Me Anything with the product team and Shay, our CEO. So we'll be able to have a lot deeper conversation around features, more specifically in those ones too. But for now, I would say thank you very much, guys. Really great time today. I had a fantastic time. Learned a lot.
Likewise, Dan. Thanks, Nick.
All right, guys.
All right. Bye for now then, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.